Hello everyone, my name is Funbi Oni-Orisan and I'd like to welcome you to today's word of encouragement. Now today's word of encouragement comes from the book of Hebrews in chapter 12 and verse 27 to 29. And I read, "Now this yet once more indicates the removal of things that are being shaken as of things that are made, that the things which cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us have grace by which we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear, for our God is a consuming fire." Yes, today's word of encouragement is about shaking, because the crisis that we are going through right now does look like a shaking. And here the Apostle Paul was telling us in the book of Hebrews that once again God is going to shake the heavens and the earth. But there is a reason for the shaking, and the reason for the shaking can be seen in verse 28. It says, because we are going to receive a kingdom. And what kingdom is the apostle talking about? He's talking about the kingdom of God. So the reason for the shaking is to prepare us, is to make us aware, is to help us reassess where we are in our relationship with God. It's to help us reassess whether we're still qualified to receive the kingdom that is coming. The thing about a shaking is that it helps us to really put things into perspective. The crisis that we see right now, it brings out the best and the worst in us. But in a way that is good, because we can really take stock of what is really relevant, what is really of eternal value. A lot of us have had to change our focus, we've had to change our plans, we've had to reassess our lives. And I think that's the positive thing about a shaking. The thing the Bible tells us here is that we are about to receive a kingdom, and we need to reassess if we are qualified to enter into that kingdom. The kingdom of God is the rule of God, it's the domain of God, it's the government of God, it's where his righteousness is, it's where his provision, his protection, his abundance is. And so we are to assess at this point in time if we are ready to receive the rule of God. And this shaking comes to shake off things that don't qualify us for the kingdom, and to help us to really refocus and align ourselves and our hearts towards the kingdom of God. As I was thinking of this story, it took me back to the Old Testament, to the book of 1 Kings in chapter 17, and from verse 7 to 16. And it talks about an old widow, or a widow and her son. And she didn't know God. And she was in a time of crisis herself, in a time of famine, in a time of lack. She was alone at home with her son. And little did she know that God had singled her out to receive his kingdom. And she received his kingdom in the form of a prophet who came by her home. And she humbled herself and she allowed him to come and stay in her home. And she experienced the domain of God, the rule of God, even in a time of famine, even in a time of crisis, even in a time where it was dangerous for the prophet to even dwell with her. But she experienced God's kingdom in her home. She experienced his provision. Even in the midst of a famine, she experienced protection, abundance, and she and her son were preserved. What comes out to me about this woman is that she was singled out amongst many. And I believe it was the quality of her heart. The Lord knew that she would receive him. And so as we are in this crisis right now, I'd like us to really reassess our walk with God and put into perspective the things that qualify us for the kingdom, and leave those things that don't qualify us for the kingdom. And I'd like to leave us with 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. It says, "Finally, all of you be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, Be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because to this you were called, so that you may inherit a blessing. For whoever would love life and see good days must keep their tongue from evil and their lips from deceitful speech. They must turn from evil and do good. They must seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. I believe this is our time to really reassess where we are, where we stand in the Lord. My name is Funbi Oni-Orisan, and I want to thank you for joining me for today's word of encouragement. God bless you.